Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Camille Tsao, and I work for the Capital Corridor as a manager of special projects. You are attending the third of 3 annual business plan update webinars. The meeting is going to last until 6 p.m. So we're happy to have you with us. I'm just going to cover a few kind of intro items. Just so you know, all participants' cameras will be turned off. You are also muted by default. And if you have a comment or question, please use the Q&A feature to submit those. And we will address them either during the workshop or after, but we are going to document all of them and make sure we have answers for all of the questions. And also, lastly, the workshop is being recorded and will be available online on our website after the webinar. So just a little bit about the annual business plan process. The draft was made available on January 13th on our website. So it is available for public view and comment. The public workshops, as I mentioned, there were 3 this week. Today is the 3rd and last. And then we invite comments from the public up until January 23rd. So you still have little bit less than a week to submit. And our final draft will include all public comments and our responses. The final draft business plan will be presented to the Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority Board for adoption at the February 15th board meeting. And now I'm going to hand it over to Leo Sanchez, our Deputy Managing Director, to give us some business plan highlights.
Thanks, Camille, and thanks everyone for joining us. So I'm just going to start by giving you an overview of the things that we're going to cover today. We're going to start by going over our key performance markers, specifically our measures from last year. Just take you through some of our operating plan, our safety and security plans, talk to you a little bit about some rolling stock improvements that we have going on. So the rest of the team will cover service reliability, some expansion projects, amenities, and then lastly close with some marketing and communications updates for you all. So next slide. All right, so last year our ridership did go up almost 100% compared to the year prior. So we're up to 705,000 riders. This is still down from our pre-pandemic levels of 1.8 million. So we still have a lot of growth to be had, but we're trending on the right direction. Our revenue was 17.8 million. Our fare box ratio was 35%, and our customer satisfaction was 86%. And then lastly, an item that I want to dive a little bit more into as we get into our performance is the on-time performance, which was 83%. This is significantly lower of where we like to be in the 90 to 95 percentile. And we have a variety of reasons of why our OTP has deteriorated, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the upcoming slides. As far as our FY22 rider profile, this is an onboard survey that we conduct every year. You can see that our commuters are starting to come back. It's still not as big of a makeup as it was before the pandemic started, but it is 36%. So it is starting to lead again in terms of the category of our rider profile. But you see that we still continue to have a lot more riders that are visiting family and friends and leisure riders. So we really want to focus on the leisure market as well as we regrow our ridership base. Next slide. And in terms of the ticket type and what different riders are doing, you can see that over 70% are actually making one-way ticket purchases, which is a significant difference of what we had in years prior. So we definitely want to capitalize on that and continue to grow our rider base there. And then in terms of our mode split of how people are getting the first and last mile accomplished, we still have a lot of drop-offs and pickups, but you see that we do have a wide variety of transportation to and from the station. Next slide. And then in terms of our forecast, you can see where we have been, and that's the solid blue line. We're essentially up to about 54% of pre-pandemic ridership. The dashed line in the middle is essentially where we're projecting that we might be for the next couple of years. And then you can see the high and the low in that range. So we're still making some increases, but definitely not where we want to be yet. Next slide. And then in terms of our service restoration, just as a reminder for you all, before the pandemic started, we were running 30 weekday trains and 22 weekend trains. As soon as this pandemic started, we had to make some drastic reductions in our service. And as the pandemic and health conditions have changed, we've started to increase our service offerings. And you can see that the most recent increases, we are up to 24 weekday trains, and we have fully restored the weekend service to 22 trains. Next slide. And here's our operating plan. In terms of our operating plan, we are currently running on our Sacramento to Oakland market, the 24 weekday trains and 12 weekend trains. And then between Oakland and San Jose, 12 weekday trains and 14 weekend trains. And then we have our round trip up to Auburn restored. In terms of what we're planning for service, you can see on the right-hand side, our planned full pre-pandemic service levels. And I'll talk a little bit of what are some of the indicators to watch for in terms of really being able to make that happen. So next slide. And here are the top challenges to service restoration. And really it's for the weekday service, which we have 3 round trips left to restore. The main ones that we're looking at here are equipment availability. Really what that means is our partners at San Joaquin are getting new equipment. That's the Siemens Venture cars. As those equipment become available, that actually will free up equipment that will be utilized between between Capital Corridor and Losan. That will give us the ability to lengthen our trains as we have that equipment available, and then also add service as budget funding resources are available. So that has to do with our budget, our funding, and really making sure we have revenue from our ridership that allows us to do that. So that really is a critical element in this. And then lastly, but I think less concerning right now, is the staff workforce availability. There have been some, sorry, my second there. I'm gonna disconnect. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
The last one on here is staff workforce availability, and Amtrak is doing a good job of recruiting and restaffing positions that had been lost. So we're doing some good gains there. So we have more confidence on that one in order to be able to add service. And next, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Joel to cover safety security and to go through some of our other projects that we're working on.
Hi, I'm Joel Cox. I'm the engineering officer for the Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority. So one of the greatest challenges to our service recently, as Leo mentioned, was the on-time performance. Our trains have not been running as well on time as they historically had been, or nearly as well as we would like. And we have identified that perhaps the most significant issue that is causing our trains to not meet that on-time performance relates to what we call third-party incidents. So this is trespassers on the right-of-way, vehicle incidents, other things that are really outside the purview of either the Union Pacific Railroad or Amtrak as operator of the service. These are just things that happen to us, but they are the most significant issue that are delaying our trains and impacting our on-time performance. So we are focusing on things that we can do to improve safety around the rail right-of-way in order to help combat this issue that is causing so much of a problem for us. So the picture here you see on your screen is a new fence that we just completed in the Hayward area. We're building lots of fences in order to help keep trespassers off the right-of-way and keep them away from the rail tracks where they can be injured or otherwise cause delays. We have sponsored 2 new Union Pacific Railroad special agents. That's the Union Pacific Police Force. So 2 new special agents who will be patrolling in the Capitol Corridor area to help keep people away from the rail right-of-way and keep them safe. We are working on a program of improving grade crossings with various other agency partners, particularly with the in Alameda County. They have a strong program of improving rail crossings to make them safer. And we want to expand that to be functional in other areas along the Capitol Corridor route. We are a participant in the California Operation Lifesaver program, which is an education program teaching people about the dangers of being around rail right-of-way and educating them to keep them away from trains. And also cleanup of the rail right-of-way. We have a lot of issues with people discarding items on the right-of-way or unhoused people living on the right-of-way in unsafe manner. And so we clean up those areas and encourage the people to find other places to live so that they don't do that. You can move to the next slide now. Additionally, we've had some issues with the equipment that we use for our service, and have found opportunities to make improvements both to meet the goals of the Capitol Corridor and also the larger state of California. So we are moving to the use of what's known as renewable diesel fuel for our trains. This will allow us to use a zero emission, carbon neutral form of diesel fuel. It's a little different than some people think of biodiesel. This is different. This is renewable diesel. This is diesel fuel that is manufactured from plant material and other sources that result in a zero net carbon. We are looking forward to additional rolling stock in cars, as Leo was mentioning, as the new equipment is rolled out on the San Joaquin service. This will free up additional coaches for use on the Capitol Corridor service. We are overhauling different parts of the existing fleet. As our trains age, they need continuous capital investment to keep them in good condition, particularly the trucks, which is the part that has the wheels underneath the train. Those are a scheduled overhaul program in the coming year. And we are looking forward to a mandate by the state of California to move towards a zero emission, a change to zero emission equipment on our service by the year 2035. And so we're doing advanced planning of what that will look like. It will probably mean a very significant change to the type of equipment that we operate today. Next slide, please. So in addition, we're looking forward to some service amenities that will help make for a more pleasant trip for our passengers. The California Passenger Information Display System, or CalPIDS modernization. This is the flashing signs at the stations that tell you when trains are going to arrive and where they're going to. That service was pioneered here on the Capitol Corridor, and that equipment is now aging and it's time to be upgraded. So that's That's an ongoing program to install the new equipment for that. Wi-Fi and entertainment system on board the trains. We look forward to new features and new improvements of the system there that will make that work better. In the food service category, we're looking for expanded food service options and a return of the Cappy Hour for discounted drinks and free snacks during peak travel times. And for ADA accessibility improvements, we have construction underway at a number of stations for improving the accessibility of the boarding platform facilities to help get people onto our trains. And we're planning for some major improvements at stations like Emeryville, Richmond, Sassoon, Davis, and Rockland, which will be a big change to the existing boarding platforms for improved accessibility and improved safety, particularly at Sassoon and Davis. And all of these will improve accessibility for all passengers. Next slide. So looking at service reliability, some improvements that we are making to the rail infrastructure will help with our on-time performance and service reliability. For instance, at Steege, which is a railroad location between Berkeley and Richmond, we are replacing the railroad signal system. Actually, most of the hardware now is already installed and is functioning. And together with that, we will also replace some of the track components for higher speed at that location. The Agnew Siding project is just south of the Santa Clara Great America rail station. That will provide that today, that is a single track segment of our corridor. That will provide a siding, which is a second track, a place where trains can meet and pass, which will be very useful in avoiding delays in that long single track segment, and also can be useful for special operations associated with the Levi Stadium nearby. And finally, the Davis interlocking and signal replacement project at Davis. The signal system there is very antiquated and subject to potential catastrophic failure, which would be huge delays for our service. So we'll be upgrading the railroad signal system there. You see the picture here of the Davis Depot. We'll be replacing all the rail signals there, as well as similar to the Steege project. We will also be replacing some of the crossovers for higher speed operation at Davis. And that work, the interlocking and signal replacement project, is in a way a first step towards the ADA accessibility project, which will happen at a later time at Davis, which will be a major change to the boarding platforms there, providing a safer environment for people to get on and off the trains, and also providing better connectivity for pedestrians and bicycles around the city of Davis and through the Davis Depot area. So now I will hand it off to Shirley, who will tell us all about other planning things that the Capital Corridor is doing.
Thanks, Joel. Hi, everybody. My name is Shirley Chen. I'm a principal planner here at Capital Corridor, and I will be taking you through some of the medium and long-term projects that we're planning to enhance our service. The first project that I'll cover is the Sacramento to Roseville Third Track Phase 1 project, which I'm sure if you've ridden Capital Corridor long enough, you've heard plenty about. This project is currently in final design phase, about 60%, and we are going to continue to seek construction funding to start and complete construction of that project. And we're currently estimating an operational year of 2028. The second project that I'll talk about is South Bay Connect. This is the project to reroute existing service between Oakland and Newark to an existing route that is shorter and more direct towards San Jose. It'll save up to 10 minutes between Oakland and San Jose. It'll reduce train congestion and build a new Transbay bus and shuttle connection in Ardenwood to the San Francisco Peninsula. Right now, this project is in environmental and preliminary design phase. And our plan for this upcoming year is to finalize the project scope with Union Pacific and to publicize a draft EIR document by the end of this year. And currently we're estimating 2029 for the start of operations. And lastly, the longest term project on this slide is the Link 21 program. This is the joint BART and CCJPA planning effort for a second Transbay crossing between the East Bay and San Francisco. This is a very ambitious project and very wide in geographic scope. It's not just the Transbay crossing that we're planning. It is also a suite of supporting rail improvements in the mega region, because the overall vision is to improve travel by rail in the entire mega region, not just the San Francisco market. And the current estimate for that project timeline is 2040 for the beginning of some for operations of some of these projects. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to talk about a very interesting project, a pilot program actually, that is part of our California Integrated Travel Program. It is the Tap to Ride pilot program to test contactless payment for travel on the Capital Corridor, and just for trains only at this time. So what this pilot program is going to do is allow participants to tap a registered contactless card on board our train to pay for your train trip. So instead of the normal, purchasing your tickets through the Amtrak app or website, instead you can simply pay for your train trip by tapping on when you get on the train and tapping off when you get off the train. And this is an easier, more convenient option of fare payment for the participants. And we hope to test the viability of this for the Capital Corridor. We are still looking at the exact discounts that pilot participants will get. But what the overall idea for this pilot program is that even for frequent riders, you will be able to get the best fare available. So if you're riding monthly, it'll kind of just build up over time to automatically calculate the lowest fare that you're able to get depending on the frequency of your train rides. And we're looking for frequent riders as pilot participants. And we're expecting this program to launch in March of 2023. And if you want to find out more about this program and sign up for the pilot, please visit the capitalcorridor.org/tap2ride website, where you'll find a lot more FAQs as well as the link to sign up. Next slide, please. Okay, and then lastly, I'm going to talk about some of the marketing and communications initiatives that we are going to be focusing on for the next fiscal year. In terms of what our focus will be is really to increase our ridership. There is, as you have heard, there is much more of a leisure market for our ridership. So we're going to focus on how we can draw more of those riders, as well as improve our service for our existing business travelers. So in terms of ticket flexibility, we want to be able to offer our tickets for more flexible rides. And part of that is going to be the Tap to Ride pilot program, where you don't have to buy a certain type of fare product in order to get the best price. And then second of all, corridor conversations are going to be returning. This is the quarterly webinars that our managing director hosts. And this year we are going to be planning those with anticipation of getting more feedback from our riders. And I know that's something that our riders have been asking for, is just more input into how our service is operating, and suggestions and recommendations. So we do plan for those. Look out for those in upcoming emails and notifications. And then, as some of you know, the 49ers are doing really well. So Santa Clara Levi's Stadium has been a big draw for our weekend service, and we will continue to service those events, sports events, as well as and other entertainment events down in Santa Clara Levi's Stadium. There's going to be some Taylor Swift concerts coming up, as well as an Ed Sheeran concert coming up later this year. So definitely serving those events with either rescheduled trains or special trains to be determined, but those are definitely going to be important for how we increase our ridership. And overall, just increasing our brand awareness across different channels, letting folks know about our service, as well as all the amenities that we do offer on our trains. Next slide, please. So that wraps up our presentation for our annual business plan workshop. If you have a comment, please feel free to use the Q&A tab to enter your comments and questions, but also feel free to use our website if you have a written comment that you want to submit after the workshop. It's at capitalquarter.org/businessplan. You can also mail us your comment at the address that you see here, as well as leave us a voicemail at the number that you see here. Please just make sure that you submit your comments and questions by next Monday, the 23rd. And that concludes our presentation. And we can now go ahead and answer any questions or comments that you may have.
Well, I don't see any comments or questions yet, but I'll just repeat a question that we heard a couple days ago, Shirley. I know you explained it, but for the tap to ride, somebody had asked, will we still have the 10 ride and monthly? And I know you talked about it a little, but does it mean that those things just go away and everybody just in the future if the
yeah. So I mean the 10 ride and the monthly ticket will still exist if you purchase it through Amtrak. It's just that in the future, if we do decide to expand this contactless payment method, it'll you essentially don't have to purchase a certain type. You don't have to have that initial outlay of hundreds of dollars in order to buy a monthly ticket. You can just build it up depending on how frequently you ride, the number of rides in a week or a month. There is a algorithm in the background that'll calculate the best available fare for that particular passenger.
Great, thank you. Now we have some questions coming in. I think this one might be for Leo. How many Siemens charger locomotives does CCJPA have, and how many are currently in revenue service? Are these locomotives performing as expected?
Let me look that up right now to see exactly how many we have. But one thing to add on that before I answer the question is that the locomotives and currently the cars that we have are actually not just exclusively used by CCJPA. We actually have a fleet that is shared currently between San Joaquin and Capital Corridor. So that equipment really could be used for either. So the number of locomotives that we use in total, hold on, let me see if it has the division between the two, and I can tell you the exact number. It looks like we have 11 total. So there's 11 Siemens charger locomotives, and those have been performing pretty well. We haven't really had any major issues with them. And those are the latest Tier 4 locomotives. One of the things that we want to do with the remainder of the fleet, which it's about another 12 F-59s that we have, is actually try to work on converting those from the Tier 2s to a Tier 4 to have a similar type of locomotive. And I think one thing that I want to expand on is that there currently isn't a plan to procure more Charger locomotives that will replace the rest of the F-59s. Really, the plan for us is that we need to extend the life for these locomotives and really try to see if we can get as many of them to Tier 4 standards. But the thing that we're really going to be focused on is to do our planning for our transition to zero emissions. So there are some fuel cell technologies that are starting to be deployed down in Southern California. SBCTA signed on for 4 Stadler units, and the state actually has buying power for 20 more options. So really that's a starting point of technology that we want to see. And our eventual goal is to transition fully to zero emissions. So we want to be more focused on that than adding more chargers at this time.
And Leo, did you answer the question, how many of those 11 chargers are currently in revenue service?
Oh, I see. Right now we have 10, and we do have one wreck that's currently out of service.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Thank you for your presentations. You're welcome. What is the status of creating a Capital Corridor Rider Advisory Committee? Do you want to answer that, Leo?
Yeah, I can take that one. So what we're actually going to be doing is through the corridor conversations, we hope to get people like yourself to submit comments and to talk generally about the service. We'll probably prepare some specific slides based on input that we get from writers, like the annual business plan. What we do is we take those together, we compile those together and we answer them, but that is a subset of topics that we can utilize for the first corridor conversations, and then we can talk about the specific things that people want to focus on and talk about. So stay tuned for that, and look that up on the website as we get closer to getting that ready. And that is a forum that we can utilize to really get input about specific details on the service.
Great. Another question. At one point, there was talk of extending service, Capital Corridor service to Salinas. Is that still under consideration? I know there is talk of Caltrain going to Salinas in the future.
I'll answer this one. I believe this project is still live, but it is Caltrain now as the contender to serve Salinas down south. But I don't know the exact details of the status of the project.
Yeah, and I'll expand that on a little bit further. I mean, we are looking to see to really revisit our vision plan and the state rail plan. So there are going to be some additional studies that we're going to be participating on. And Pete, thanks for joining us. And we hope to really see what else we can do, not just ourselves, but what our partners are doing and things that we can do to improve the rail network here in California.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, another question related to the locomotive question. I recall that these are capable of a higher top speed. I'm assuming the Siemens chargers. Has the Capital Corridor been able to capitalize on the enhanced speed to reduce trip times, or is the speed restriction due to the tracks?
So I can answer that. Yeah, so the train speeds on the Capital Corridor, we have worked hard to optimize our train speeds and increase, improve travel times as a result. And yes, it is true that the locomotives could go a bit faster than we currently operate, but we are limited by civil track, what's known as civil track speed limits, which is related to the alignment of the track and also the type of railroad signal system that is used. Our current maximum speed on the Capital Corridor today is 79 miles per hour, and that is limited by federal regulation. We would need to implement a different type of railroad signal system, additional safety features in order to travel at any speeds higher than that. And so far, we have not, there's relatively few places along our line where it would be practical to go at that higher speed. And we have not found that it would be cost effective from the standpoint of funding that's available and the travel time reduction that could be achieved based on the amount of work that would be required to replace the railroad signal system and make other safety improvements in order to enable that higher speed.
Okay, great. Thanks, Joel. The next question I'll take, it says the Link 21 website focuses on the Oakland to San Francisco tunnel project. While I understand the great benefit of Capital Corridor being able to cross the bay, there is at least an existing rail service, BART, for this corridor. Why is Link 21 apparently not looking at Dumbarton, partnering with Samtrans, Caltrain? It would enable great Trans-Bay possibilities with Caltrain and ACE. So you're not the first person to ask this question. First of all, I'll say there's a lot of need in our region, in our mega region, to have more rail capacity in different corridors. The reason why Link 21 is focused on the Trans-Bay corridor is because it is still the most heavily traveled corridor in the mega region. And while BART isn't at the capacity that it was pre-pandemic, projections still show that eventually, the BART tube will reach capacity. And so we need some sort of redundancy in that corridor. And Capital Corridor, we have a lot of passengers who are trying to get to San Francisco and further down the peninsula. And so it makes sense for us to look at that as a possible future corridor. As far as Dumbarton goes, the latest status of Dumbarton is they hadn't decided on what mode would be appropriate for that corridor. I personally have worked on that corridor like 3 times, studied that corridor 3 different times. While there certainly is demand to cross sort of mid-bay there, it's always been challenging to justify a rail investment there based on the projected ridership and the cost. I'm not denying that there isn't a need there for some sort of higher capacity transit service, in addition to the Dumbarton Highway Bridge. And just one more thing I'll say is that we are coordinating quite a bit with Caltrain because the Link 21 project will benefit Caltrain riders as well. So it will not only benefit folks traveling longer distances from, let's say, Sacramento or the northern San Joaquin Valley to San Francisco and the peninsula, but for folks that are just staying within the Bay Area, just being able to travel, let's say, between the peninsula and the corridor between Emeryville and Richmond. We can save a significant amount of time if we had a standard gauge rail connection there that connect to Caltrain. So that's my long-winded answer to your question. Hopefully that sufficed.
And I could take the last one. Camille.
Okay, the next question is the Amtrak connector bus from San Francisco to Emeryville departing from the 3rd deck of the Salesforce Transit Center rather than Mission Street now?
Yeah, the answer to that is unfortunately not yet. We are working with our partners at AC Transit. that if we can do that partnership, then that would mean that our riders would be able to get into the Salesforce Transit Center. So that hasn't happened yet, but we are still in planning conversations with them.
All right. We have another question. Will Agnew siding project allow more of the SAC to Oakland trains to continue as far as San Jose? Or is completion of the South Bay Connect project and changing rail corridors required before more service can be added to San Jose? Shirley, would you like to answer that?
Yeah. So the short answer is that the Agnew siding project will not, by itself, will not allow more service to be added to San Jose. There is going to be South Bay Connect is definitely part of the puzzle, and it's probably not the last thing that we need before adding more capacity to San Jose. We do imagine that there's going to be some more improvements made on the rail corridors between Oakland and San Jose, including a very large bottleneck that is the Alviso wetland area. This is the area, this is the corridor between Newark and Santa Clara that is mostly single track, and it is used by both Capital Corridor and the A service. And in order to increase the capacity in that corridor, it'll have to be done in a very sensitive manner, not to mention a complex engineering feat, because it is going through a wetland with soft soil. The environmental challenges, of course, there is a lot of wildlife habitat in that area. There's a federal wildlife refuge just outside of the right of way. So anything done in that area in terms of a project will have to be adapted to sea level rise, as well as done in a way to enhance or, at least not detract from the wildlife habitat use of that area, as well as just the water, what to do with the water, whether to restore tidal flow or, protect certain areas from sea level rise. That's a decision that has to be made in a collaborative manner with all of the agencies that are involved in the area. So yeah, it's a big challenge. It's a big question mark of how we're exactly going to solve that puzzle, but we do realize that it's a bottleneck for our capacity down to San Jose, and it's something that we're starting to think about now.
Thank you, Shirley. Okay, another question is, can you please explain why AC Transit dictates whether the Amtrak connector bus uses or doesn't use the Salesforce Transit Center third deck?
Yep, and I'm happy to answer that. So just to clarify, they are not dictating whether Amtrak connector bus can or cannot enter into the Salesforce Transit Center. The real issue here is that, unfortunately, getting into the Salesforce Transit Center currently comes at a significant cost premium, and with budget and funding resources being as constrained as they have been and as they are still, we really don't have that ability to do that. So what we're trying to do is find a more stable solution that actually gives us a better long-term solution financially, and also gives us the ability to provide access into the Salesforce Transit Center.
Thanks, Leo. I don't see any more questions in the Q&A. Panelists, are there other questions you've heard from previous webinars that you think that you haven't heard tonight that you think might be of interest to our attendees?
Let me try to look through my notes real quick.
I remember, Leo, we had one on service on Tuesday night, asking about more service from Sacramento.
Between Oakland and Sacramento.
Between Oakland and
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I guess the first thing that I'll say is that currently the service that we're running has to do with the equipment constraints that we have, and then also just trying to get our ridership and revenue at a higher level to really be able to financially support that. The other thing is, even beyond the 15 round trips that we provide between Sacramento and Oakland pre-pandemic, I mean, those are the rights that the state has through some purchases that were done back when SP sold those to the state. So that to go even beyond that, I mean, that would have to come with negotiations with Union Pacific, and really probably means some capital improvements similar to what we have between Sacramento and Roseville that we're working on today.
Mhm. Thank you. Okay, one more question. Is there any way to improve bus connectivity from Sacramento heading eastward in lieu of trains in that direction currently?
And we have, I mean, I guess I would like to get some clarification if you're referring to going up towards the Placer County area, or going towards South Lake Tahoe. We actually run both services. In the meantime, what I can do is just talk a little bit about it. So we do have a current partnership. First, I'll talk about the El Dorado Transit partnership that we have, that does give us a round trip from Sacramento to South Lake Tahoe. That's a partnership that we started a little bit over a year ago that has been really successful. And eventually we would love to expand that service to add more frequencies to be able to have better options for riders. And I see that the question is specifically related to Sacramento or Roseville, or Rockland and Auburn. And we do have a few connecting options. We don't have a ton of them, but we actually are working on partnering either with Placer County, a transportation agency, or Roseville transit agencies, and trying to see if there's a similar partnership that we can have, like the one that I just mentioned with El Dorado Transit. So we are in conversations with them. We do currently have a partnership, well, not a partnership, we have a bus connector service that we pay through Amtrak that connects some of our service, but not all. One of the things that I'll highlight is that with Roseville, we are trying to start with the train 527 connection, and seeing if we can connect to that one. That one really is the immediate need that we are trying to get some service connectivity from Roseville area to Sacramento. But even beyond that, we really would like to take advantage of some of our transit agency partnerships that we have up in that area.
Thanks, Leo. I don't see any more questions in the Q&A, so just in the nick of time, since there's a need to connect passengers from Sacramento to San Francisco and the peninsula, why not a connector bus from Emeryville to Caltrain Station at 4th and King? That's a great question. That connection would certainly help people to get further down the peninsula. However, from a travel time perspective, probably not very competitive. I mean, one of the objectives of Link 21 is to get more people on the train and to just improve rail mobility in our mega region. So, like the average speed on rail to go, that you go in 1 hour in the Bay Area is about 35 miles an hour. But you look at other major metro areas in the US that have rail service, like Chicago, New York, Washington, DC, and you can go 55 to 80 miles within an hour. So for us to really make rail a viable and competitive choice for people in this region, we need to be able to get, significant distances in a shorter amount of time. Do you have any information on Losan, possible service north of San Luis Obispo to San Jose? There was a Coast Rail study underway in recent years exploring that. I do remember the Caltrans Division of Rail and Mass Transit conducting a study there, but I don't know a lot about it. Does anyone else?
The only thing that I can say is that they do run a Amtrak throughway bus service that goes from that area up to San Jose. So that I forget the name of the route, but they do run that connection. And I'm sure we can locate that and write that back on our comments when we do. But the other thing, just related to what Camille was saying, I mean, I think once we start doing some more detailed corridor studies, I think it will shed some light on things like that. But yeah, I think more to come on the Coast Rail study.
Mhm. And Pete, I see you have your hand up. I don't know how long it's been up, but did you want to? Oh, okay. No longer. All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, we're almost out of time. Like we said, you're welcome to submit additional comments or questions in these variety of ways shown on the screen. If you think of anything after this webinar, we'd be happy to take your comments until the 23rd. Yeah, look for the responses to those in our final draft that's going to our board on February 15th. Thank you all for attending. We really appreciate your interest in Capitol Corridor. We hope that you continue to ride and encourage your friends and family to ride, and we'll see you on the train soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good
Have a
night.
Good night.